Hi guys, welcome to the Improvement Season podcast. It is me, Steve Hall, and over there is Pascal Floor with the best voice on the internet.
Hello and good morning, guys. This is your man, Pascal Floor. Welcome back to the Improvement Season podcast.
And we have questions to go through, but before we do that, Pascal has something to share about his cut, I'm sure. Let's go. It started this Monday.
I went glyco.
I went glyco.
Well, what's it called again? Now I totally forgot the name. Hypo, exactly. So, I went out for a walk here today, and that was simply too exhausting for a fat piece of shit as I am. And my GDAs just kicked in. They were too severe. They just shuttled all the glucose in my blood into and then I went hypo. The GDAs. That's the entirety of the story.
Did you have cinnamon on your porridge this morning?
I had cinnamon, I had chromium, I had, what else is out there? Metformin also on top of
berberine.
it. And berberine, yeah. And I took a little bit of insulin.
Fucking hell.
Yeah, so not really a surprise. No, yeah, but the cut started on Monday. Classical start for a cutting phase. Typical Monday, New Year, right? So I'm just one of many people who started that. And yeah, what can I say? It's just always a little bit of a challenge getting used to that. But this is always something I tell all of my clients as well. First 1, 2, maybe even 3 weeks are like, you have to get used to that new style once again. You have to accept and embrace that you will feel hungry. Especially, I have the feeling in the beginning, it is the worst. And after like a couple of weeks or month.
Yeah, you kind of hit your stride in like the first few weeks, right?
Yeah, totally. But in the beginning, it is such as trying to transition into a new habit that you haven't done in a while, or a skill that you haven't done in a while, and try to be good at it again. Like playing an instrument. You were so good in your adolescence years in playing the piano, for example. Or let's say the trumpet, just for the sake of it, right? You played the trumpet and you were so great at it, but you haven't played for like 10 years. But you know that you've been good in the past. So yeah, why not getting back into that again? And then you start and realize, holy shit, I'm really, really bad at it. And that's inconvenient. So you have to practice again a little bit, takes you a while, but quickly it comes back, and then you are on the level of your old skill or former skills. This is kind of how I see dieting. At the start, it's a little bit challenging. Then you just ride along with the wave. And then you get to a point where it's really hard to further advance your skills.
No, it makes complete sense. I like the analogy. Love an analogy. I was thinking of coming off the motorway and then onto like a 30 mile per hour, or like, I don't know what that's in kilometers per hour. When you have to slow down, it's never fun. Whereas when you get into bulking, you get onto the motorway, that's fun. So how's, I guess, at the moment, body weight fluctuations all over the place? You tend to hold on to a ton of water, so I bet your scale weight has just gone boom.
No, surprisingly not. No, it was steady for the first days now. Which is a little bit of a bummer because the thing is, you knew from the past or from the previous cut that the weight just came off super quickly. I know, what was it? I think I lost, wasn't it 4 kilograms or so? Yeah, 3.8 kilograms in the first days, like 5 days. And now nothing changed for the first days. And I'm just wondering, am I really in a deficit? No, I am. I truly am. It's just probably just some more vegetables, probably some more fiber intake. Also a little bit more sodium. This is something I can't say for sure because I just love these. I already talked about it. These chicken snacks. 150 grams of chicken breast, and these 150 grams have like 3 grams of salt on them, which is crazy, that amount. And if you're just eating like 2 packs of them a day, you're already at 6 grams of table salt. And you are eating other meals as well. So I would assume that a lot of it is just like salt. So yeah, it will come down, and I'm not in a rush because I don't even know whether the contest prep in fall will happen or not, right? So
yeah, I guess it's people aren't aware of that. We haven't really spoken about anything in that much detail yet, and I don't think we need to necessarily go into a ton of detail, but I know, at least I guess it's good for the audience to know Pascal was preparing for contest prep, and now it's a case of see how it goes, because there's things going on in life that are unpredictable, and so it was always going to be like that, but now it's just more you're more aware of that.
Yeah, I mean, I will talk about it in the future, that's for sure, because this episode or this show format is all about transparency, but at the moment I can't share what is going on because I simply can't share it yet. So in the future, I'm able to talk about it in a couple of weeks from now on. And then I guess many people will understand where I'm coming from and why it's quite uncertain whether I'm stepping on stage this year or not.
And in terms of like macros, are you kind of having a minimal fat intake, as high as carbs you can, and pretty high protein? How's that looking?
Yeah, I'm trying. So protein, I don't have a problem eating my protein. It's so crazy, because, but that has always been like that. I always enjoyed foods or meals that are high in protein, not because I'm a bro, but more so because I simply enjoy these things, such as quark. I mean, 500 grams of quark, 60 grams of protein. Boom. Easy, right? That 2 tons a day, you're already at 120. Yeah. That is crazy. And you only ate like 600 to 700 calories with that. So aiming for around 180 to 200 grams of protein, which is already for me, like, I need to keep myself at bay with that one. Carbs in the range of 250, and then fats in the range of 40 to 50 grams.
Cool.
I take it a little bit more aggressive at the beginning, simply because I'm at a position. We talked about it in the past a couple of times. I'm in a good position to do that at the beginning of a cutting phase, when you have higher body fat percentages, you haven't been dieting for a longer period of time. You should be able to get away with pushing it a little bit more without the risk of losing any kind of muscle mass. All these kind of things, right? Or the heavy impact or severe impact of the negative adaptations. So push it in the beginning. And this is something I haven't done in 2017 with the contest prep. And I totally regretted it after a couple of weeks, that I didn't push it when I was able to.
Yeah, I actually said it to a client this morning. I was like, it frustrates me when I see people not push it in the beginning, because 9 times out of 10, these are the people then, especially if they're competing, they then have to push it inappropriately hard at the end. And it's like, why are you losing half a pound at the start of your contest prep and then losing like 2 pounds in the final weeks? That doesn't make sense. Do it the other way around, please.
And even if it's equal, even if they are losing half a pound at the beginning and half a pound towards the end, why? Why not lose more at the beginning, be ready earlier, and eat your way back into the show? Because, I mean, why not? So you always can then make that case for that.
At least ideally on paper. Sometimes it doesn't happen.
Yeah, absolutely. That's for sure. But I mean, if you have the opportunity, then start a little bit more aggressive. Most likely it will not negatively impact you or have diminishing returns on you, because you're in a good position. More likely it will have diminishing returns for you and be detrimental if you need to push harder in the midst of the contest prep or towards the end of the contest prep.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think I always like people to like push as hard as they can, like the entire time. And that doesn't mean that you push like and lose weight at the same pace the entire time. Like, as hard as you can is what's appropriate towards what's going to retain muscle mass, what's going to retain performance. So go hard out the blocks completely. Cool. So I guess an update on me briefly.
Oh God, stop it, please. You're making too much progress. I already have a hard time explaining to people that they shouldn't compliment you on your arms and on your shoulders when I have to answer the comments on YouTube.
Brilliant.
They should not encourage you. So please, no update from your end.
That's so brilliant.
Go ahead, mate.
That's really tickled me for some reason. It just sounded, you're very good at doing I just laugh as soon as I start taking the piss like that. So yeah, I mean, I'm going to be really frustrating here for a lot of you because I was ill, things weren't going well. Probably I'm that annoying guy that's always seems to be going okay, and I actually feel pretty recovered now. And I managed to really weirdly not need that deload and push for a week 5, which I did not expect. So all the things that should have kind of gone wrong didn't go wrong. So deload will commence from tomorrow though, because it's one of those cases where I think of it like you're gambling. It is kind of gambling at this stage when you are overreaching, you're pushing your limits. Is it worth making another bet, or should you just take your wins and leave? Like, as a gambler, like gamblers always lose, that the house always wins eventually. So actually be a smart player, kind of take your winnings, deload, and then you can come back and play again once you've kind of, used that money or invested it, or however you want to use that analogy. Luckily, I've never been a gambler. On a side note, Pascal, have you gambled? I feel like have you not? I felt like you might have.
I always wanted to go to a casino, but I think Hollywood romanticized it a little bit. Okay. I've never been to Las Vegas. Have you?
No, I really want to go though.
So when you watch some Hollywood movies, they are always like in Las Vegas when they are gambling, and it seems like such a cool place to be. But I know a couple of poker players who are professional poker players, and they went to the Berlin casino. But they told me that this place is actually full of like fucked up people. They have nothing. So it's not that glamorous life that many people see on the television, but it's more like a place where, yes, when you're a professional player or so, maybe you are going there, or when you are, you simply have the money, or when you're just a broken piece of shit. Sorry for any people in advance. Maybe it is different in other countries, and I've never been to a casino, but I just heard it, and I always wanted to go though.
But yeah, same with me. It's just nothing. I'm not comfortable gambling like that. I've done it online for free before, and it's been fun. But I've never properly done money.
This is something I did myself as well. But you have nothing to lose there, so it's not. I don't think it's the same.
So yeah, for me, I can kind of feel potentially some niggles coming in this week and stuff. And it's like, if I push for another week, what's the most I could get? I'd probably be able to repeat performance. I can't see myself beating the performance I've had this week. Pushed everything basically to 0 reps in reserve, 1 to 0 reps in reserve. The volume I'm doing is unsustainable. So yeah, deload coming in, that'll be nice, because to be quite honest, it seems really glamorous and like I have made great results. But training twice a day and doing that consistently for months fucking wears you down. It's not an easy thing to be doing. Luckily, like my job kind of works in quite well. It's quite nice, but there are times at which it is inconvenient. There are times at which I wish I could just do a single training session, which I could. But it's nice to have a break next week. I'm looking forward to that.
Steve, today I had a thought, and I wanted to share that with you. And I was actually quite shocked why I thought that way. So yesterday I listened to your voice messages, and you were saying like training, but with all the context, you're training twice daily, then you're always pushing and extending the mesocycle. And I had that thought where I'm always getting back to you and saying like, hey, don't go and push yourself too hard, not that you're or run down. All these kind of things people are normally saying, right? And I realized that this is unfair for you, because probably when you're telling me that you're able to push for another week, why am I assuming that you will run yourself into the ground? And why am I like, okay, please don't push yourself that far? And I came to the realization, and that is quite scary actually, and I'm sorry in advance, that I just realized that probably I'm concerned about that because most likely I have a problem that you're able to train twice daily and make that much progress, whereas I couldn't.
Wow. That is very open. Damn, I didn't expect that. I was expecting you to have a go at me or something. That is, what is that? That's self-reflection. And that's really refreshing to hear.
And that's simply not fair. And I think that I'm just telling you because first and foremost, I was shocked at myself to come to that realization that probably I'm not always, but when I tell you to take care of yourself, don't push yourself too much, is that this is an insecurity maybe or a problem that is speaking from my end, and that it's not truly coming from kind of an altruistic place where I'm caring about you without getting anything in return, but it's more so coming from that fact that I would like that as well.
I can see that.
And yeah, I was just shocked, right? And I can see that so many people are probably biased due to that they are recommending things to other people or judging other people's training philosophies or methodologies because they would like to do it themselves, but they simply can't, or they are not willing to do so.
No, I can see that. And also to give you the benefit of the doubt, at least, in terms of like when we're training our clients and everything, we are more conservative, more concerned about their well-being and health for a lot of the time, rather than pushing them inappropriately hard sometimes. So I think there's more to be gained by being a little bit conservative and not getting injured than sometimes pushing it past your limits.
No, absolutely.
But likewise, we do have those clients who we do encourage and push them. And there are times where, like, I actually very often, at least in the last probably 6 months, I've had clients where I'm like, you're weak, like 4 or 5 of that mesocycle. It looked good, but are you truly in a position where you feel like you've earned that deload, or can you go for another week? And we often will push it. And like often they really enjoy having pushed it for that week. Sometimes you do, and you need to know the person and how they deal with things. And I guess, for me, I don't know whether, I think I'm a bit in the middle ground. I don't necessarily feel like I need to be pushed a lot, but I certainly don't always need to be like babied, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But it's interesting.
But I mean, at the same time, I just want to say, of course, I care that you are not running yourself into the ground. But I think it was not justified to make the assumption that you're doing that right now, because things are heading into the right direction. You know yourself better and better. And I just would have wished when I had that thought and I made that realization that I'm more supportive about it instead of making negative assumptions because of, I don't know, my own desires or so.
Yeah, I think you can play this out in loads of areas of life where we end up potentially being a little bit selfish in some ways, where we don't want to be or mean to be, because it's almost human nature a little bit in some instances to want to be your best and want to be rise above others, and to truly always be selfless and to always want the better for everyone else above your own self. Like, there aren't many people like that. There aren't.
No.
Because I don't think they necessarily get that far in life sometimes, because they
true.
almost help push everyone else at their own detriment sometimes.
No, cool. It's just a thought that came up, and I just wanted to share that. And I thought, why not the podcast? It's better than just the voice message between you and me.
And I think probably the listeners, I'd love to hear what they think to it, because I reckon they can also relate to it, and also comment about how big my arms are and beat and annoying for Scott.
And the arse. But this is something not many people see all the time. True. What does Charlotte say about your gluteus maximus?
She likes me fatter. She likes me plump.
Oh.
She does not like me slim at all.
Yeah.
Not keen on that. But she does call me a fat ass.
I came to the realization here, AJ has probably listened to that episode as well. I've recently watched a video where he squatted, it was 200 kilograms for 4 repetitions, I think. And he approached the bar, was wearing tights as well. And I was just thinking, man, he got a booty now.
It's where we deposit our fat just in the ass, and then we reveal the shreds later on. Not to say that AJ hasn't gained any muscle on his ass. I'm sure he has as well. I'm just trying to keep this no homo.
Yeah, let's move on to the questions then.
Yeah, let's go on to the questions. Awesome. So the first question, and then you're going to get one from YouTube, correct?
Yeah.
It's cool. So I think we skipped Michael Lindbergh's question last time, and we want to get back to it. And he asks, in terms of judging body fat levels by visual cues, how can you compare vascularity in arms and legs to seeing definition in abs? Are there genetic differences, more vascularity, or just bad ab genetics that come into play? I've never had super defined abs, even at lower body fat levels. Never been contest lean. So I don't know if you have some initial thoughts on that, Pascal?
I mean, first and foremost, of course, it is genetic plays always a role in that one. I mean, take a look at someone like Alberto Nunes, a good example of just being a veiny freak. And there are other people who are even more crazier, but most of our listeners know who Alberto Nunes is and know how vascular he gets. And some people don't get vascular at all, even if they are stage ready. I mean, not at all, but not as visible. Someone like, for example, Ryan Doris. I think he when he was stage ready, he just looked thick as fuck. I don't know how it's possible to build such a density.
BBC.
BBC?
BBC genetics.
Baby.
Have you not heard this?
No.
Okay, you have to look it up afterwards. I'm not going through the you can probably guess though.
I can. So so of course, same as defined abs, there's a genetic component to it. Best example here, also Steven and I store basically all of my fat around the midsection, whereas Steve still has abs. And as you already alluded, most of his fat is distributed around his gluteus, gluteus maximus. And so as an indicator for body fat, I don't think it is a good indicator. Sure, I mean, the leaner you're getting, the more the veins pop. But I have the feeling that with training age, you will see veins that have never been there before. And what's it called again, Steve?
Capillarization or? No,
when you are actually building new veins.
Yeah, I've forgotten. I was thinking, is it not capillarization? It's something along those sort of terms. But yeah, you do, as you're completely correct, as you train, and especially as you do like metabolite work and stuff, you need more vascular, like you do hypertrophy your vein. Like, I don't know whether the exact term, but something along those lines. Have you found it?
Yeah.
I feel the whole...
I tried to Google that, but maybe I'm not as good at Google as I would like to. I don't think that this is the good thing to do. I would just... So when it comes to body fat levels, I mean, we've talked about it in the past. I'm not the biggest fan, and actually these percentages that are being thrown around. And in the end, it just comes down to what do you want? What do you want to look like? What do you feel comfortable with? And then the number is only a number. And if someone tells you that you're 20%, but you're feeling super shredded, all right, in your views, that is the main thing. I mean, it doesn't matter what the guy then says, whether you're 20% or 11% or 5%. No, if you want to get it even further, the judges don't care. They are not giving you any kind of additional points just because you are 1% leaner than the other guy.
Yeah, it's completely true. I'd only add that, I mean, you can even look at yourself, Pascal. I remember your abs weren't necessarily showing through a whole lot, but you had veins covering your abs, which was just like freaky. Whereas for me, you could almost, if you just took my stomach and looked at it from like start to end of prep, it probably wouldn't look much different apart from my waist would come in. My abs actually don't look any better. Like as I get leaner, they're just maybe slightly more defined, but they don't particularly look that much better. So I think the correct answer is yes, all of these things impact stuff. But the important thing, and the thing you alluded to right at the end, was what does it matter? You don't need to know what percentage you are all you need to do is like, you can look at yourself and you know if you're lean or not, basically. You know if you're comfortable with your level of leanness or not. You know if you feel good or not. If you're not feeling good, you're not very comfortable with your leanness, probably cut down. And you cut down until you are comfortable, until you do feel like you're looking good and feel good, and then you can build back up. And we know if like, you don't need to know exact numbers, and you never will know an exact number. You know, if you're looking 20% plus, like you know that, like you just know. And if you're 15% roughly or below, you know that. That's all we need. Like, you just know if you're lean or not. And that's all we need to worry about, like big margins of error. And in, like Pascal said, no one's judging you on your number of percentage body fat. You're only looking at yourself.
Yeah. Unless you have an underlying disease such as anorexia, where your body perception or your self-perception is so screwed that you're simply not able to see that you are lean, but your perception is that you are fat or so. All right, this is something I just wanted to throw out there, not that anyone gets now offended because it's 2019. So moving on to Matt. So Matt asked a question over on YouTube. And this question was so good that I wanted to cover it in one of our episodes. It is regarding training volume. So bear with me. Hey guys, my name is Matt Noy from Australia. Good. Been training for 12 years. First 6 years been doing the bro split, roughly 15 sets per body part. The last 6 years been following legs push pull off repeat. Total number of sets 24 to 60 sets per big body parts, smaller body parts. Total of 18 sets per week. Did you get it?
I think so.
24 to 30 sets per big body parts, and for the smaller ones, 18 sets per week. Okay. So my body has definitely adapted to this volume. So I don't want to cut back on volume. I haven't gotten stronger though since about 3 to 4 years now. Strength plateaued badly. So example, bench stuck at 110 kilograms for 8 repetitions, squat at 130 for 8 repetitions, don't deadlift as lower back problems, I do hyper extensions instead. I deload every 8 weeks. First 3 days, I do 6 to 8 repetitions, other 3 days, I do 10 to 14 reps. I alter my exercises each workout. Example, pull-ups 6 to 8 reps, then next workout pull-downs, higher repetitions, dumbbell bench, higher reps, then next workout heavy bench press. So that was basically the question, all right? So he's doing more, just to sum it up, he's doing more sets for bigger muscle groups, 18 sets around for smaller muscle groups. Since 3 to 4 years, his strength has plateaued. He's deloading for every 8 weeks, but he doesn't want to cut down on volume. So your thoughts?
Is his YouTube channel Optimal Natural Bodybuilding?
Yeps, that is it.
Because he messaged me over on Instagram as well, and I left him, and I have to apologize on air to him because he left me some voice notes. Because I left him a voice note answering his question, and I said I didn't have time to listen to those because I didn't have time. So I apologize on that. But my big, he didn't quite write as much as what you've written out there, I don't believe. But the thing I picked out on, and the thing I picked him up on, was the issue of not gaining strength. For me, in the long term, if your goal is hypertrophy, you should be gaining strength in the repetition ranges that we're typically looking at in hypertrophy. So that's like 6 plus, basically. So for me, long term, I forget what let me see if I've got a little bit of a quote written down, I think, somewhere, which I thought was really great. So you can gain strength without muscle, but you don't normally add muscle without strength in the medium to long term, was something I wrote down the other day, and I just thought it was really great. And that applies exactly to this. Unless there's other things going on. So in those years, I'm absolutely sure that he will have gained, technique may have gone up. There's other things that may have improved. His range of motion might have been greater. But my issue basically comes down to long term, there needs to be some sort of strength improvements. Otherwise, we cannot be sure that he's gained muscle mass. I think he did say that physically he looks like he has, which is more important than strength indicates. Like, looking in the mirror is the number one thing. Like, if you look in the mirror and you look bigger and you look more muscular and jacked, you've gained muscle. It doesn't matter what everything else says. But I think what we come down to is there is a point at which more is not better. And if we're consistently doing lots and lots of volume and we're not seeing performance increases, then we have to look at recovery. And if we're not recovering from what we're doing, then more isn't going to solve the issue. We need to solve recovery, and that normally means doing less. So if you're doing, like by definition, if you're not seeing progression, which I guess if you haven't gained strength, then you're not in your minimum effective volume, you're not in your maximum adaptive volume, you're not in your maximum recoverable volume, you're actually like over that if you're seeing decrements in performance, or you're just seeing maintenance in performance. Or I guess you're at maintenance volume, but from the sounds of it, he's doing plenty of volume. So I very much doubt he's doing what he needs to maintain. And potentially then it just makes sense, reduce the volume he's doing, come right back down nearer to where a minimum effective volume might be. And then he can always move up from there if he's recovering well. But he should start progressing as he alleviates more volume and allows for more recovery to take place. But it's hard to say because there's a lot of things that could be going on within that message that he sent that could have changed in his life and in his lifestyle and in the exercises and in his execution, because it sounds like he's gained muscle despite not necessarily looking like he should have, because he hasn't gained any strength. I don't know if you've got any thoughts, Pascal.
Yeah, absolutely. So that was brilliantly covered. Things I have to add there, because I mean, you can actually make an entire episode, I think, about just these things. First and foremost, I want to say that maybe when you're training for that long, I hope that you have your technique and form in check. If not, reassess what you're doing in the gym when it comes to execution, because this could be the limiting factor. However, when you're getting better in your form and technique, and that is improving, it could potentially be that the numbers stay the same, but the quality of the workout is getting better and better, and you're getting more and more out of that, because you're progressively getting better, and thus it kind of equals to progressive overload. Because each and every repetition, you get more out of each and every repetition. However, I would assume and doubt that this is the case because you're stagnating since 3 to 4 years. So if that's the case, and you're then saying that you are, or that you don't want to cut back on volume, I have to just question your approach on that one, simply because what do you expect could get worse? So you're not progressing in regards to your strength levels anymore. If you're getting visually better, good for that, but maybe you're missing out on something, and trying to change something for a shorter period of time will probably not regress you. That's for certain. Maybe you will stagnate all along then, visually, but also from a strength perspective. But in that situation, it's just about trying something else. And maybe it is to cut back on volume. And you will be happy if you do so and try it for yourself, just to rule that one out. If doing too much is maybe the cause for that. Because once again, it is insane to do the same thing that actually causes you to stagnate, continue to do that, but complaining at the same time that you don't want to change anything. So you're repeating, or when you want to break it down, you're repeating the same mistake over and over again and expecting kind of different results, which is, by Einstein, insanity, right? So this is then, you can't expect anything to change if you're not willing to change. And I would encourage you to just try something else. Maybe it is solved with exercise selection, that you're picking some other exercise variations for the next mesocycles. We are not really aware of whether you're doing that already. Maybe do some repetition variations as well, so more of an undulating pattern from mesocycle to mesocycle. Also, maybe instead of deloading every 8 weeks, try something like every 4 weeks or every 5th week, or just taper it down to 7, then 6, then 5, then 4, and try to see whether this actually ignites the progression again. So there are many things you can actually work on and try for yourself, because if you have been training for 12 years already, then you should be willing to just endure the next 6 months doing something else.
Brilliantly said. And the only thing I'd say is, just came into my head, is something that really helped me, and and helps me within mesocycles is leaving some reps in reserve. So I don't know if he said he was doing that or not, if he was doing any submaximal work, because if you are pounding just to failure every time, that amount of volume, I can see why, like, you're just not leaving any room for accumulating like good progression through that. But if he's doing that much volume, then I have a feeling he probably is leaving some, because that's a hell of a lot of work to do all to failure. And then the last thing, I mean, if you've tried doing less, then the other option is to do more. And we just don't think that's probably the answer.
I wouldn't expect it, but there are always outliers. And he said that he's doing exercises for bigger body parts, but his bench is relatively strong with 110 kilograms for 8 repetitions, but his squat is with 130 kilograms for 8 repetitions. It is, of course, better than the general population or the general trainee, but I think it could be higher, especially when you're having been training for 12 years. Of course, I don't know your body weight and stuff like that, so could potentially be that you're a lightweight and then these lifts are quite impressive. But maybe it's just a matter of trying to take care of your technique as well and try to progress there. Try to undulate or periodize a little bit more strategically, that you're throwing in a little bit of I prime my face here and there as well. Also, to resensitize yourself to a higher volumes, and by that also increase your overall strength as well. So there are many things you can work on, but I think that it was a brilliant question, because there are so many things that are common for people to fall into, especially the thing with, okay, once I am at that level or that amount of set numbers per week, I don't want to cut back. The fear of changing or trying to change something about your program as well is all too common for people. And I think that you have to change something at some point. Yeah, Hugo's
not happy.
No, Hugo's never happy when he comes back and the door's closed.
Pascal, I want to see you. Oh, lovely. The only thing I wanted to add there, which I thought, it just, having spoken through it, reminded me of why we do primer phases and how the body is an adaptive system. As you go through hypertrophy work, more and more volume, you get some adaptive resistance. You might want to, I guess it's been phrased, anabolic resistance to a stage. And we've both found that having primer phases now and then, not like you don't need them every few months or anything, but if you've been going for 3 to 4 years and you haven't had a lower volume phase, there's probably, you'll see so much better results from it, because it does become to a point where you almost are at a point where you're like, I'm at like quite unsustainable volumes. I'm having to do a lot to even get a pump. Like, it just makes sense to just clean up, almost go through that primer phase. He'll probably see a lot of benefit from that, and then just slowly trickling things up from there.
Oh,
cool.
But just wanted to throw it out to Matt. Thank you very much for that question, because it was, once again, brilliantly to throw it out, to ask it, because I think that many people or at least can relate to one or two things there.
Mm-hmm. And especially as, like, he's been training for so long, things just matter so much more. Like, when you think about all the little details of nutrient timing, recovery, like, I know for myself and you, Pascal, if we, like, I don't know, if something is slightly off, we feel it in our workouts. And if it's consistently off, then we don't make progress. So, whereas when you're a novice, you can fucking drink and then have a training session the next day and you're jacked. Well, compared to where you were.
God.
So let's go to Amanda, who has asked, I don't think we covered this question. If you are trying to lose body fat, but you are now below your theoretical basal metabolic rate, so that's the number of calories you burn in bed, basically. It's the same as a resting metabolic rate, basically, so at rest. So not including NEAT and like TEF and PAL.
Things to keep you alive, basically.
Yeah, I don't know why I've
without
gone into
doing
that.
anything else.
What would you suggest a person to do? Example, I am female, 145 pounds, 5'5", at 30% body fat. I've gone down to 1,200 calories with 120 grams of protein and fats and carbs divided to make up the rest. Even at that, I was maintaining and not losing. Any suggestions? So I think we both have a lot. This is going to be a pretty long-winded answer as well.
Yeah. So once again, we have to make many assumptions what maybe the underlying cause here, or whether there are many causes for that. So first and foremost, the things that come to my mind is, so how active are you on a day-to-day basis? Because I don't think that your BMR has dropped so significantly, because from the scientific literature, the biggest drops that we are seeing when it comes to basal metabolic rate is about 10 to 15%. And that is with people who have been crash dieting or in an anorexic state for a long period of time. And that is reversible, right? So 10 to 15%. For someone your size is not that much from your total calories. So I wouldn't think that your basal metabolic rate is the problem here. I would rather look into something like NEAT levels. Are you really as active as you think you are? So you didn't really make any kind of information about your activity levels on a day-to-day basis. But maybe you're really sedentary, could potentially be, or you are overestimating of how active you are on a day-to-day basis. On the contrary, though, maybe you are not estimating or tracking your calories as accurately as you think you are doing, especially for someone your size. Once again, unfortunately, when you're consuming 200 extra calories, which is easily to do without having noticed that throughout the day, but with an intake of 1,200 calories, that's quite an excessive amount over that already from a percentage perspective. So if Steve were to eat, I don't know, a protein bar just on one day, wouldn't really make that much of a difference. But if you were to go away with 1,200 calories and eat a protein bar with not tracking it, it would be percentage-wise such a huge difference. And if we take a study, Ben Carpenter, if you're not following him on Instagram, he posts a lot about miscalculation and misreporting when it comes to calorie tracking. And he just recently posted that study where people have been told to actually track their stuff or say how much food they're ingesting on a day-to-day basis, and they were off by, I think, 52% of the estimated calories, 52% on a day-to-day basis, and they overestimated their activity levels by, I think, 13% or so. That in conjunction with each other, it will throw you off big time when it comes to the overall energy expenditure versus calories in.
Cool.
Steve?
No, I agree. And it's really funny because the 1,200 calories that she threw out, I think is actually what Ben Carpenter threw out on his post as well.
Oh, really?
I think it was. But yeah, initially what comes to mind in her question is, when I think about BMR, when I'm doing a rough calculation, it's for females like 10 times body weight in pounds. So 1,450. So if she's eating 1,200 calories, that's already a 250 calorie deficit, which is not huge, but that should lead to roughly half a pound loss per week. But she's saying that she's maintaining and not losing. And then you made up some brilliant points about kind of obviously activity levels outside of that are going to have an impact. But still at resting, she should, and the fact that BMR is not going to reduce. I mean, depending how long she's been dieting. If she's been dieting a long time, maybe it's reduced by 10%. But still, if it's reduced by, to guess 10% would actually put her into, then can see why she wouldn't be losing if then NEAT levels came down and everything. But like you said, it's very extreme cases where it reduces by that degree. So I doubt it. And then the points you brought up are really interesting. And I wrote an article and I just brought it up because I thought it would be interesting to see it. I wrote it, when did I write it? 2015. I wrote 3 shocking reasons you could gain weight on less than 1,000 calories a day. So the first one we've kind of already ruled out was like, you're not in starvation mode because of all the reasons we already lined out. It's just unlikely that you're going to have seen such a drop in BMR that sort of thing's going to happen. Then, and kind of talk about metabolic adaptation, that sort of thing, and how it can be recovered. And the thing you point out was kind of, you suck at reporting calories was one of the points I made. And people are really bad at reporting calories. And there's loads of evidence on this. Even people who are like researchers within the field on it are then poor at reporting calories. So if you're not accurately really tracking something, if you're a little bit off, then like you said, Pascal, that little bit is like a big percentage of your total intake. So even if it's like a few hundred calories every single day, this is going to add up, and that could reduce what was a small deficit to no deficit to maintenance. So that's really common. And then the other thing I said is like Lyle McDonald always talks about women should go out and get pissed when their weight is stalled because it reduces their cortisol levels and that has an associated drop in water weight. So it could be the fact that potentially she's fairly stressed, she's overthinking things, or just you've been dieting a long period of time, take a break, chill out a little bit, and you'll see some drop in water weight. There's loads of other reasons that your scale weight could be maintaining, like if you've been eating out more, where you are in your cycle in terms of like where you are in your period, certain times within your period, you're going to see more water retention. That could have an impact on your scale weight. It's hard without having like a sit down consultation with such a person to know if they are maintaining, because you could be maintaining on the scale, but if you're measuring your kind of circumferences, you could see those like dropping. I would say if you haven't been dieting for an excessive period of time, if you feel like you're hungry most of the time, you're making good choices in what you're eating, I would say it's unlikely that you're not going to be losing fat and you're not in a deficit. And it could be that you just need to be a bit patient, and maybe it's only been a couple of weeks that you've maintained, and you just need to hold out another week and you'll see a whoosh on the scale. And the whoosh is a weird phenomenon. I know Lyle McDonald's talked about it quite a lot. And I think he theorized kind of body fat cells hold on to water before they release the fat and the water with it. And I'm not sure if that's been found to be true or not, but it's certainly true where you could maintain for a period of time and then see a whoosh, just like Pascal said at the start, like your body weight's maintained despite being in a deficit. And people might be like, well, Pascal, you can't be in a deficit if your body weight's maintained. That's like contradicts one another. But in fact, you'll probably see a whoosh at the end of the week. So your average overall for the week will come right down. And it might mean, especially for females, sometimes they have to look at a monthly average. So those are the only additional points that I'd kind of refer her to. And I'd say just most of our audience are really well educated, and if she thinks she's in a deficit, if she's doing everything right, like she's probably monitoring her steps, she's probably got very good awareness of all these things. I think it's just trusting the process and really just relax about that, and you'll probably see it come down.
Yeah. So when it comes to the calculation of your macros, I think that Steve has a really good infographic on that one. How to calculate basically your calories, and I hardly ever go below 10 calories per pound of body weight for many people, because it's not necessary. Most of the time people just lose weight fine on that intake, and if it is the case to go below it, it is because they are really small individuals maybe, or their body is just so adaptive, or they are super lean already. So we can outrule that you're super lean already. You're a small individual, that's true, but not super small. So the likelihood that this is the reason for it is also smaller or decreased, or your body is just so adaptive to that. Could potentially be. So maybe this is what is going on here. But going below 10 calories per pound of body weight, this is something you are doing already. I would really assume, and this is no offense against you, but that you are probably not tracking your calories correctly. Maybe in addition to that, overestimating your activity levels, and or maybe there's some underlying issue going on, and I don't hope that this is truly the case. So let's just outrule that. So because you were asking for any kind of suggestions or what to do in that situation, I would first and foremost look at the calories, because that's the easiest thing you can do and most accurate thing you can do, because estimating your activity levels is always kind of not really that accurate, no matter what kind of activity trackers tell you. So look at the calories, start tracking them if you're not already doing so. Get a macro tracker such as MyFitnessPal, log everything in, and I mean everything. The dash of milk in your coffee, the snacks in the kitchen when you're going in there and have a gummy bear or so, right? everything, the vegetables, even for someone your size. I know it is most of the time recommended by people not to track the vegetables because they don't make that much of a difference. But someone your size, it probably does. Because when you're only eating 1,200 calories, having, a couple of 100 grams of vegetables already plays into that. So yeah, have a look at the macros, track that for a couple of weeks, so that you can truly outrule whether you have been underestimating your caloric intake. And if that was the case, then take a look at the activity levels and whether you can do something about that there. But don't change everything up at once and hope to change it now, because otherwise you will not find out what was causing that.
Mm-hmm. No, brilliantly put. And it reminds me actually of clients who... I actually recently had a client come to me who was like quite substantially overweight, wanted to lose weight, and felt like they'd tried everything and really, really put their best foot forward. And everything they were telling me, I had every reason to believe that there was something just not adding up. Something just didn't add up. You know, when something just doesn't add up, like this probably. And they signed up first week, dropped a load of weight, second week, dropped a load of weight. And then on reflection, they tell me that actually, you know what, Steve, I probably haven't been eating as little calories as I thought. I probably haven't been as consistent as what we have here. And I think really that's all that, there was no problem. It was just I wasn't consistently adherent to the calorie deficit. And in addition to that, some people actually don't even know how to track properly. So it doesn't happen to me anymore. And Pascal, you'll probably laugh at this. I've had clients in the past who they'd eat like a ham sandwich. They would enter into MyFitnessPal ham sandwich. They wouldn't not weigh out, but they wouldn't put in their bread and the ham that they've eaten. They would literally go into MyFitnessPal and Google ham sandwich, or they'd eat a burger at home and they just go into MyFitnessPal, burger. Oh, I had that burger. I'll just put that. Did you have that burger? They just put in whatever. So
I also heard stories about people who instead of tracking the macros,
I know what you...
they thought like chicken breast. Plugged in
100 grams of protein.
100 grams of chicken breast for protein or so, right? So that just goes to show that we're not saying that this is the case for you. We would assume that the people who are listening to our podcast have some understanding of a field. If that's not the case, by all means, that's fine as well. We all started somewhere. And we've made some suggestions, and I hope that this was helpful. If not, I mean, I'm at least always happy to be reached out to over on Instagram. Steve has a little bit of an issue with catching up on all the people that are reaching out to him. I mean, 50% of the people are dick pics, but the rest is really serious, and thus can be quite hard to actually reach out to Steve. But mate, no one is actually talking to me on Instagram, so feel free to reach out to one of us if
they don't know you exist, Pascal. That's why
the problem still exists. Yeah.
We probably have time for one more question, and this is from NJ UFC fan.
Oh,
which I know UFC.
Me too. Part of it.
Advice for programming core lifts or compound lifts in a metabolite mesocycle. For example, for chest, in addition to metabolite techniques on things like machine press and cable flies, should we still program a core lift like barbell bench or dumbbell bench with standard straight sets in the 12 to 15 rep range? Or should we instead also do metabolite techniques on the core lift too? Pascal, that was 2 shoulds. Are you okay?
Yeah.
I can go first of all if you're okay with that.
I think you have a better experience already with metabolite blocks. I still am figuring out how to best program them for my clients. So just really quickly, I still program certain compound lifts, but it's most of the time not something like heavy deadlifts. That's for certain, because they are wearing you out too drastically. Whereas I still do something like squats, but this is always dependent on the individual. When people are really good high bar squatters, targeting their quads drastically, then I program them, because I have the feeling, at least that's the case for me as well, that when I'm doing like heavy squats really all the way down, it just speeds my quads up as nothing else. And most of the time it's enough to have done like 2 sets then to then already have such a burn in my quads. And then when I'm going on to the next exercise, everything I'm just adding on top of that is just like filling up that metabolite bucket, so to speak.
Yeah, cool. I think the reason I brought up should, and Pascal has and with neither of us particularly like should, because it makes it seem like it's a black and white answer. And what I would say is there's many ways you can do this. You don't even need to do metabolite work. I wouldn't necessarily recommend everyone do metabolite work. When we think about the pathways to hypertrophy, mechanical tension is king. And this is your typical, like you said, your sets in the, well, you said 12 to 15 repetition range, but yeah, your standard straight sets of pretty heavy work. And this should be the core of your program pretty much most of the time. I don't personally like to have a full mesocycle focus on metabolite work. I've done it before. It didn't feel particularly productive. It kind of felt a bit like, meh. I do know in Brad Schoenfeld's book, why have I forgotten what it's called? I've got it. It's his... I can't remember. He's got a book where he has a training program in it, and one of the phases in there is a metabolite phase where everything is metabolite work. Everything is a pump work. However, because of all the things I've said before, like mechanical tension is kind of king, and we want to keep an element. I like to keep an element of that in our program, so you can still see progressions across mesocycle to mesocycle. And I kind of put in metabolite work as the icing on the cake, as you might say. So when I'm getting to a point at which a person looks like they're kind of getting to their kind of feather's end in terms of hypertrophy work, maybe they're doing lots of volume, they have been for quite a long period of time, it's kind of like this is the last thing to tick off before then we go for a lower volume period or something along those lines. So I tend to just have it as a little bit of an additive, and a little bit goes a long way, I would say. So I've made the mistake of doing too much in a first week, and this is when I got my exertion headache, and my quads were sore for like over a week. It was horrendous. So a little bit goes a long way, and then you adapt to it very, very quickly, so you can start increasing the numbers of how much work you're doing. And then I would cycle it out. It's something you kind of thread in now and then, very rarely, and I would basically add it on top of what you're already doing to some degree. But like Pascal said, sometimes you want to remove some of those big systemically fatiguing lifts that maybe just aren't well placed and don't work well with that metabolite work. And this is something I'm going to have to come across for my next mesocycle, as I want to incorporate some metabolite work, and whether or not I want to keep deadlifts in there or not. And part of me wants to, just because they're a great compound core lift and I'm just loving doing them. But a big part of me knows that's probably not the best use of my recoverability, and I can put more effort towards doing the metabolite work, get more quality volume in. So I'll probably need to remove the deadlifts from there then.
Yeah. Just one more thought. I was just wondering, maybe the should is just a local thing or cultural thing. Maybe it is, I don't know, more common to say it in America or so. I don't know. But I know for a fact, I was growing up in the northern part of Germany, so I count myself as a northern guy. And from my dialect, it is, I actually say something like should as well on German. But this is just because of the place where I'm coming from. This is just how you speak there. So maybe it is a thing, and I'm always complaining about it, but this is absolutely the way they're talking. Like the resting bitch face. They can't do anything about it. It's just how they are.
Andrew Catley, if you listen to this, that's you.
Yeah.
I don't know if you will listen to this. I always think could is a better word than should.
Yeah, me too.
Max Muscle Plan.
Or do you recommend, or...
Sorry, Max Muscle Plan is Brad's book.
Yeah, absolutely. Do we have it in our library?
I have it. I have a printed version. I don't know. I don't think he has an ebook.
No, I mean in our library on our website,
no,
which
I'm not sure
is
we do.
A great resource for everyone who's not aware of
Nice
that.
plug.
We've actually made a library it's called, for all the recommendations on books to read, especially around the topic on training, nutrition, people to follow that we recommend, all that kind of stuff, so that when the question arises on social media or so, what books do you recommend? Now you know where to go, bookmark that, save it somewhere so that you always can share that.
Yeah, I don't know if it's Brad's textbook there as well. He's got his textbook.
I have no idea if I added that.
So those are two good books.
I'm sorry, Brad. I know that you're listening.
He is an avid listener.
He is always listening and tells us how much he likes us. So, yeah.
I didn't diss his program at all just now, did I?
Yeah.
Brad's program's amazing. Get it and follow it.
Yeah, absolutely.
I imagine he's kind of like the hypertrophy god, so he's omniscient. Is that omnipresent? So whenever anyone talks about hypertrophy, he can hear you and see.
Yeah, but only if you have the amount of gains that is required so that he can hear your prayers and can look over you. You have to actually have built some solid amount of muscle mass to get into the heaven of hypertrophy.
Brilliant. And on that bombshell, auf Wiedersehen.
Auf Wiedersehen.